This is Beering Ain't Easy. Do you spend all week thinking about what new beer you'll try next? Then yeah, this podcast is for you. Come join us while we try new beers, share our ratings, debate craft beer culture, and in the process, throw a few jabs at ourselves. So crack one if you got one, and turn it up.
Welcome to Beer Ain't Easy, episode 11 with Adam and Drew.
If you're buying, I'm drinking.
What does that mean? What does that have to do with the episode intro?
It doesn't at all. So last week, we did the episode on the suburban life. What are your parting thoughts?
My parting thoughts are that last time we talked about how controversial things get in the Facebook page. And I plan to promote the episode in the neighborhood Facebook page. And I am wondering if we will have offended anyone.
I think that's a guarantee.
To be honest, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed if we don't.
Oh, man. My takeaways on that are, one, to your point, we're still living in the neighborhood. We haven't been kicked out yet. So that's a positive. And then two, we established your nickname is Old Chub. So I just wanted to throw that name out there one more time so people didn't forget.
I can live with that. I mean, I still would rather be called Old Chub than Peepers, which is what everyone in the neighborhood refers to Drew as.
Sure they do. Sure they do. So we got an action-packed episode today, so that's about all we can do for a recap.
So today we have our first guest on the Beer Ain't Easy podcast.
First time ever to have a guest on the podcast.
When we kicked off the podcast, we told you we'd be bringing in guests.
I think what better guest to bring on the first of our podcast is my very own brother-in-law, Ryan, who brought me to the craft beer game. And frankly, his bachelor party has given me a whole lot of material for this podcast. And I need him to have a second bachelor party, if that's allowed, just so that we can keep the podcast going for another dozen episodes or so.
If it wasn't for that bachelor party, I would be talking to myself on this podcast because that's about 80% of the content Drew has brought to the table so far.
When you have kids, that's all you got. You know? you're waiting for your brother-in-law to come in.
Hold on to the bachelor party.
Yeah. So Ryan, you want to say hi to the mic?
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be a guest, period, but to be the very first one, it's pretty great.
When we drew up the podcast, we had it marked that you would be our first guest, and here we are.
No question.
Setting a pretty high bar for me here. Puts extra pressure on me for our little game today.
Well, the audience has been listening to Drew and I for the last 10 episodes prior to this, so their expectations can't be too high.
I lived in Houston when all there was in Houston was St. Arnold for craft beer. And I moved to California for 6 years. You know, one thing that Ryan brings to the table is that Ryan lived through that evolution of the Houston beer scene.
Hold on a second. I gotta take us back a little bit because I have a story that I've been wanting to ask Ryan about.
Okay.
So, Drew was not really into craft beer as early as you. At one point, Drew told me about how he offered you a frosty mug and you were drinking. you were drinking some high-end beer. Drew's used to drinking his Miller Lite and Shiner Bock out of a frosty mug. And he comes up to you, is like, "Hey man, I got some frosty mugs. Here you go." And then he saw the look on your face. But you were a nice guy, and I understand you didn't say, "No, I refuse." But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I try not to be too big of a beer snob, but I think I had a moment of weakness there. Yeah, no frosted mugs. Serving temperature to get not too technical, but most beers, is 45, 50 degrees or so. So frosted mug is going to totally ruin all that flavor. It's just going to taste cold, which is perfect for your domestics and stuff like that. But yeah, that was a learning moment for both Drew and myself, I think.
The learning for you was not to drink with Drew.
Yeah, and how to respond when someone doesn't know something.
he handled it incredibly well. So, I mean, like, he let me down easy, but I knew that I needed to set my game up, and that started me on the journey, I think. So, Ryan, I got to ask you a question. Since you were here in those early days when it was just St. Arnold or bust, or drink Shinerbach and Miller Lite, like, what was it like seeing the Houston beer scene just blow up?
My old neighbor, when I first got down here, I was fresh out of college and was still that whole, quantity over quality type thing. He was the one that got me into it. There was a bar that didn't have anything but craft beer on tap. They had no, Bud Lights, Miller Lights, anything like that. So before we walked in the door, he turned to me and he was like, "Do not ask for a Bud Light. They will give you a bunch of shit."
They will slap you across the face.
Yeah, so he's the one that forced me down that path, but he started bringing me to all the new ones that would open up, places I didn't know about, didn't hear about, I wasn't following it. And he would just text me and be like, "Hey, we're checking out this new brewery, let's go." So yeah, it's been cool. A lot of places that start out super small have gotten really, really big and putting out some really good stuff. So, I mean, it's getting up there. It's respectable for sure.
And so what better episode to bring them on than our topic today, which is taking all the flagship IPAs, not the small lot darlings. These are the big bad boys. And we're going to put them side by side in a blind tasting to see which one comes out on top.
So we have 5 different beers that we're going to go over. We chose the 5 common IPAs that we felt like would be most available for sure in Houston, but also in some areas outside of Houston. We're going to go through each one of the beers that we're going to drink today. The first one, of course, we had to...
Wait, hold on. Let me crack it before
all right.
I'm just going to crack one. Oh, there we go.
Of course, we went with the St. Arnold. So we chose Art Car IPA by St. Arnold as one of the beers. What's the second beer, Drew?
Second beer we got today is Hopston from 8 to Wonder Brewery. And Ryan, do you want to introduce our third beer?
Yeah, we got a Mini Boss from Eureka Heights.
Beer number 4, Hipster Sauce IPA by 11 Below Brewing. So this one is probably the newest beer of all the beers that we're going to drink today.
And last but not least, I've got a beer that may inspire some controversy here, but it was one of the OGs of Houston. So, all of the beers we're drinking today are all from the Houston city limits. And we can't leave out Mr. Karbach, Hopadillo IPA.
So Drew is always hating on Karbach, and he did not want to include Karbach in this experiment. Is I think the best way to describe what's going to go down today. And I wanted Karbach only for the reason that we're doing a blind taste test, and I'm going to make fun of him forever if he picks Karbach as his favorite beer.
Not going to happen. I guess this is a great question for Ryan, living through the transformation of Karbach being an upstart brewery to becoming a, sellout brewery.
Sellout.
That's what it is. So Ryan, from a craft beer lover's perspective, how do you feel about Karbach?
Everyone can be all high and mighty about them not being independent anymore and selling out. But if you opened a brewery and some big conglomerate came in and offered you hundreds of millions of dollars, I dare any one of you to say you would not take that money.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree. If we're doing strictly craft, you probably just need to leave them out, but don't blame Karbach for it.
Yeah. I mean, they are one of the OGs in Houston, so we really couldn't leave them out.
Yeah, if you're talking the Houston beer game, this is the one that if you're in another state bordering us, you're like, oh, Karbach. Yeah, you recognize it.
All right, Ryan. So let's talk a little bit more about the Houston beer scene. What is your favorite brewery right now in Houston?
Right now, it would have to be Eureka Heights. Just love everything about their vibe, their concepts, their can art, their events. Just everything's top notch. It doesn't hurt that they're 3 blocks from my house, so that's cool too.
That's always a factor.
Yeah. But before that, Eighth Wonder was my favorite. They have a Vietnamese coffee stout called Rocket Fuel that's just top notch. I think it's one of the best beers in Houston, probably.
That's a good beer.
So Ryan, like we made one of our episodes in honor for folks like Ryan. He's been living that good city life 3 blocks from a brewery. And he's like currently trying to build a house out in the burbs, about to live that suburban life.
Oh, you're moving to the burbs?
Yep.
Says it shamefully.
Yeah.
The suburban life episode was designed with Ryan in mind to prepare him for this journey.
Yeah, you talked about how I brought you in the craft scene where you're walking me along through the beer dad scene, so you're repaying the favor now.
I did notice that when Ryan usually comes over, we're talking about craft beer, but today he came in and he was like scoping out recessed lighting in our offices and looking at the backsplash in the kitchen. So he's already living that suburban life.
Living that suburban and that dad life. All right. So I hate to break it to you, Ryan, but one of the requirements of being a guest on the Beer and Ain't Easy podcast is that you have to go through an untapped roast.
It's roast time.
It's roast time. Are you ready for that?
I might need a beer for this, but let's go.
So, Drew, you want to go first or you want me to hit him up?
I think you should go first on this one.
Okay. When Drew roasted me, he called me an untapped bully. A cyber untapped bully. Over the years, you may have noticed me cyber bullying you on Untapped when you frequently don't rate beers. You just check them in and there's no rating. So what's up with that?
I'm going to humble brag here. I've checked in like over 1,500 unique beers. I'm pretty similar to you on Untapped, whereas basically like 375 is my baseline. If I rated every beer I had at a 3.75, my bell curve would be so skewed, it would look ridiculous. So what my strategy is if a beer is good, nothing too memorable, I just don't really rate it. It's the beers that are really good or not as good that I make sure to rate so that I remember next time I look it up.
That's a lot of like mathematics and thought that went into that.
That was
like,
what I
man,
was thinking.
Some serious business.
Yeah. I was like, you've made it in the Untapped game when your behavior is adjusted based on your bell curve.
So we're doing a little bit of an abbreviated roast. So Adam got one question and I got one question. And so the one question that I'm choosing to ask you is, I look at your Untapped history with like 1,500 beers and you got some really good beers on there, but there's one that's a 5-star rated beer on your list that is Bud Light by Anheuser-Busch. Can you defend yourself on this podcast?
No. The previously mentioned friend that got me into craft beer, when he was pulling me over, I was still going out, day drinking with college buddies and stuff. And I would still, we'd just be grabbing buckets of Bud Light, stuff like that. So he got me on Untapped so we could start following each other, checking in beers, tracking stuff. And just to antagonize him, I started checking Bud Light in for 5 stars every time I was doing it.
Oh, nice.
So that's the real story behind it.
But like, what is your real Bud Light rating then?
Probably, I'm going to go ahead and go like 2.75 just because they're hitting a specific spot and they hit that spot extremely well.
That's what she said.
Teed it up.
Okay, so I have a bonus question. Do you re-rate beers? If you have beer rating regret on Untapped, do you re-rate the beers?
I'm with you. I don't typically go back and re-rate stuff. If I really feel like I messed up, I will do it, but it's pretty rare.
And so what do you think of those types of people that frequently...
That's an unfair question.
Well, at this point, I'm pretty sure the audience is getting sick of listening to our bullshit.
Let's bring on those ratings.
All right. Let me start off by saying this was the most fun episode that I've been a part of so far.
No question.
Me too.
Okay. So beer number 1, we're going to go through what each of us thought the beer was, what our ranking was in terms of relative to the other beers, what we think our Untapped rating was, and then any tasting, smelling, appearance notes. So beer number 1, I'm going to give our guest the honor of going first. What beer do you think it was?
I put down hipster sauce.
Hipster sauce. Nice. That's what I went with. I thought it was hipster
went
sauce.
with hipster sauce as well. That's
You went with hipster sauce?
Yeah.
Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 5, out of the 5 beers we drank, Ryan, where does this beer stack up?
I have it at number 3.
Number 3. I have it at number 5, dead last.
I feel like we need some context here. Why is that your least favorite?
It just didn't do it for me. I mean, it out of the beers that we drank, I felt like it was the most earthy and the most piney.
So actually, yeah, I know you like some malt, and I have that one as my least malty one. So that I wonder if that factors into it at all.
It may have been a factor.
So
Okay,
this was
Drew?
the lightest color. Like, we couldn't figure it out because it looked like a shade lighter than every other beer on there.
Yeah, I felt like all the other beers were really similar in appearance except for this one.
I thought it had the best nose. I thought it was resinous. I never would have picked it, even though I thought it was hipster sauce. I actually picked this as my favorite beer out of all
Your
of them.
favorite beer.
Number 1 is what I put.
All right. Untapped ratings. I went with a 3.5. Ryan, what did you go with?
I mean, right in line with my third place, I went 3.75, just middle of the road.
3.75. Drew?
4.0.
4.0. All right. Drum roll, please. Mini Boss.
Holy
crap.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
Okay. So I need to provide the audience some context. Ryan lives 3 blocks from Mini Boss. I asked him when the last time he had Mini Boss was. He said yesterday he bought a 12-pack. And he cannot identify Mini Boss. You know what's really
This
interesting?
is a disaster.
You know, this is so much fun. I hope the audience is doing this experiment along with us.
We're done, right? We're sending here.
It was my number 1. What can I say? I love some Mini Boss, I guess.
Yes.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Okay. That was, you know what was really interesting is that all of us thought it was hipster sauce. Why do you guys think you thought it was hipster sauce?
I thought it had that hipster sauce flavor.
Okay. Beer number 2. What beer do you think it is, Drew?
I think that one is Art Car.
I also said
You
Art Car.
also think it's Art Car.
Yeah.
I thought it was Hopadillo. Damn it.
Hey, but you know what? We all failed on number 1, so you may have a shot here.
I may have a shot. Okay. On a ranking from 1 to 5, where does this rank, Drew?
Number 2.
Number 2.
I put it as number 2 as well.
Number 2 as well. I put it as number 4. And let's talk Untapped ratings. What do you got, Ryan? Where are you putting it?
4.0.
4.0.
4.0.
4.0. I put it at 3.75.
To me, this was the strongest grapefruit flavor of all of them.
Interesting.
I like it.
All right. Number 2, unfortunately, is Art Car.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Got one right.
Damn it.
There's no salvaging this after the Mini Boss thing.
I know.
Yeah.
That makes me feel a little better.
You can never recover from the Mini Boss. Okay. Number 3. What beer do you think it is, Ryan?
I have Hopston.
Hopston. Interesting. I had Art Car. I thought it was Art Car. But let me give myself an out to this competition is that these guys drink these specific IPAs much more than I do. So I probably haven't had any of these beers for a year.
You know what I call that? I call that an excuse.
I'll say hedging for sure.
I'm preparing the audience for what's
Your
going
failures.
What I call it is managing the audience's expectations.
So what was the question?
I don't remember where we were. Okay, beer number 3. I said it was our car. Ryan, you said it was what?
Hopston.
I said it's Hopadillo.
Hopadillo.
3 different beers. Reveal it.
No, I'm not revealing it yet. Rankings. Ryan, what's your ranking?
3.25.
I had it at 3.75. Drew?
3.5.
3.5. Ranking. I had it middle of the road, the middle beer. Number 3. Drew?
Number 4.
Number 4?
This was also my number 4. Drew and I have been lockstep so far.
Oh, boy. The great reveal. Hopston. 8th Wonder.
Makes it a little better, I guess. I'm still mad about the mini boss.
I could have sworn that was Hopadillo. I felt like it was the maltiest beer, and it had a little bit of an aftertaste to it.
So let me take a step back. Going into this, who did you guys think would win this competition?
I was thinking Art Car.
I got to stand for mini boss. I thought it'd be the one.
I thought Hopston would win it for me.
Really?
There's a lot of moving pieces. I hope the audience is keeping up. Beer number 4. I look at my paper and I already know I'm wrong. It's demoralizing. So I thought beer number 4 was Hopston.
Number 4 was actually, I thought it was Hopston too.
You did too?
Yeah, I thought that was
Interesting.
Hopston.
I went with Hopadillo.
Hopadillo.
And this is the one, by the way, that I didn't want to drink and you finished off for me. So that tells you that was my 5th beer. 5th ranked beer.
That was interesting. And the fact that I finished your beer tells you it was my number 1 beer.
Oh my God, I can't wait to find out what this is.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Ryan.
It was my number 5. It finished sweet, and it was like such a bitter finish.
It was
wasn't
bitter,
clean.
the most bitter finish. You're totally on.
I thought it was the most malty beer.
I agree with that too. Yeah,
Okay.
It was the most malty.
Okay, Untapped ratings. Let's talk Untapped ratings. I had a 4.0.
3.25.
3.25.
3.0.
Ooh.
Which is relatively low for me.
Karbach.
Hopadillo.
Damn it.
Adam just picked Hopadillo as his number 1 beer. So for all of you listeners out there that are hating on Karbach for making a subpar beer, know that somebody in a blind taste testing, even if it is Adam, it says that it may not be that bad of a beer.
What if I told you I was playing a joke on you guys?
I'd call bullshit.
Damn it. Damn it. All right. Beer.
Oh, wait, can we just stop for a second and just reflect that Ryan and I just had a moment where we picked that as the 5th beer?
Yeah.
Boom.
I can't pick mini boss, but I can pick what the worst beer is.
Beer number 5. What beer did you predict it to be?
This was my mini boss guess.
Ooh.
I thought this was a mini boss too.
You know what's really interesting is I also thought it was mini boss. Where does it fall in the rankings?
I got it at number 3.
This was my number 1.
Number 1. And let me ask, did it get influenced by the fact that you thought it was mini boss?
100%. I was convinced that was mini boss, and I was like, yeah, this one's my favorite. I put it at 1.
I had it as my number 2 beer. So I thought this one was the least hoppy of the group.
I thought it had the fruitiest nose to it, and it was the sweetest beer.
This was the only one, personally, that I got some floral notes to.
All right. What are your Untapped ratings, Drew?
3.75.
Ryan?
4.25. It had a nice clean finish, nice and refreshing. I was all about it.
Wow. Okay. I went with a 4.0. This beer was hipster sauce.
Wow. In recap, just thinking about this, out of all of our favorite beers here, Ryan thought he was going in with Mini Boss, but his number one was hipster sauce. I thought my number one was hipster sauce, but it turns out that my number one was Mini Boss, actually. And Adam picked Hopadillo.
Don't rub this shit in.
Adam's a basic bitch. If by some random chance you're following these composite rankings, we got a tie at number 4 between Hopston and Adam's favorite Hopadillo by Karbach / InBev. Coming in hot at number 3, we got Mini Boss by Eureka Heights. Art Car by St. Arnold is a number 2 pick. And we got to give a congratulations to the number 1 Flagship IPA in Houston, according to our blind tasting. And that is Hipster Sauce by 11 Below Brewing.
All right. Well, this was the first episode where we had a guest, and he really did deliver.
I feel like he brought some legitimacy to our podcast because he actually knew what he was talking about, whereas we're just fucking bluffing.
He brought some legitimacy to our illegitimate podcast.
Just like your children.
I was thinking of a way to tie that back into my illegitimate children, but I couldn't do it. And so with that, we'll see y'all next time.
This has been a Brewing Ain't Easy production at the Sesh Co-working Podcast Studio in Houston, Texas. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you want to see what we're drinking, our untapped handles are Brewing Ain't Easy Adam and Brewing Ain't Easy Drew.